All right, so get ready because today we are going deep on this book.
Okay.
That promises to unlock some serious achievement potential.
Right.
In work life, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about The One Thing by Gary Keller and Papasan.
Okay, yeah.
They claim to have uncovered the surprisingly simple truth
Yeah.
behind extraordinary results.
And they use some pretty compelling examples to back it up.
Okay.
Did you know the founder of Guinness signed a 9,000-year lease
9,000 years.
for his first brewery?
Wow.
Talk about a long-term vision.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, how often do we put limits on ourselves
Yeah, exactly.
before we even start?
9,000 years.
Yeah.
That's some serious commitment. Makes my 5-year plan feel a little short-sighted.
Yeah.
So how does this book help us break free from those self-imposed limitations and actually achieve those big, audacious goals?
Well, they start with this idea of the power of one, which hinges on the Pareto Principle, better known as the 80-20 rule. Now, I know that might sound like a tired business school concept, but the book does a brilliant job of showing how this principle plays out in everyday life.
Give me an example. I need to see this in action.
They talk about how 80% of car defects can be traced back to just 20% of the flaws.
Okay.
Now, think about that in the context of your to-do list. Are you spreading yourself thin, trying to tackle everything at once, or are you laser-focused
Right.
on those crucial 20% of tasks that will actually move the needle?
Okay. That's actually a really helpful way to think about it.
Yeah.
It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right things.
Exactly.
How do we figure out what those right things are?
That's where the book's central question comes in.
Okay.
What's the one thing I can do, such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary?
Wow.
It's about cutting through the noise
Yeah.
and identifying that one key action that will unlock the most progress.
So we're talking about finding our one thing on both a macro and micro level.
Yes.
Like the big picture life goal A and D,
Yeah.
the most impactful task for today.
Exactly. Think of it as a cascading effect.
Yeah.
You have your overarching one thing, and then you break it down into smaller, actionable steps.
All right, let's try this. Say, my one thing is finally writing that novel I've always dreamed of.
Mm-hmm.
Using the focusing question, what's the one thing I can do today to move closer to that?
I love that goal.
Thanks.
Let's think about it. Would spending an hour brainstorming plot points be the most impactful action? Or maybe committing to writing 500 words no matter what?
Ooh, writing 500 words feels doable, and it actually gets me closer to the finished product. I see how this works. But let's be real, staying focused is tough. Do I need to suddenly become a willpower superhero?
That's actually a myth the book debunks.
Yeah.
They use the example of Michael Phelps, an Olympic champion who, believe it or not, started out with ADHD.
Oh, wow.
His success wasn't about having superhuman willpower. It was about strategically channeling it.
Wait, so even Olympic champions struggle with focus? That's kind of comforting, actually.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this willpower strategy.
The book delves into the science of ego depletion.
Okay.
Researchers like Roy Baumeister have found that willpower is a finite resource. It's like a muscle that gets tired. So if we try to change everything at once, we're setting ourselves up for burnout. The key is to focus our willpower on building one key habit at a time.
This is making me rethink my new year, new me approach. So if we were to pick one tiny habit change for our listeners,
Yeah.
what would have the biggest ripple effect? Getting enough sleep, maybe?
Sleep is a fantastic one.
Yeah.
Or establishing a solid morning routine.
Right.
Think about it. What's one small change that if you nailed it consistently could positively impact other areas of your life?
Okay, I'm feeling motivated already.
Right.
But what about multitasking? I'm the queen of juggling a million things at once, or at least I thought I was.
Right.
This book really calls out the myth of multitasking, right?
Oh, absolutely. The book makes it clear that our brains are not computers. We're not seamlessly switching between tasks. We're rapidly shifting our attention, and that comes at a cost.
They cited some research about office distractions, didn't they?
Yes. One study found that the average office worker
Yeah.
is interrupted every 11 minutes and then spends a third of their day just recovering from those distractions.
Oh, wow.
It's a productivity killer.
Wow. I hadn't realized it was that bad. So how do we break free from this multitasking madness?
It starts with awareness.
Okay.
Identify your biggest time wasters and brainstorm solutions. Do you need to silence notifications? Close unnecessary tabs? Maybe even find a quiet workspace.
All right, I'm ready to declutter my digital life. But what about those times when you're facing a tough decision? The book had that fascinating study about parole judges.
Yes. That study is a great illustration of how our willpower fluctuates throughout the day. Researchers found that these judges were far more likely to grant parole early in the day when their willpower was fresh. As the day went on, they defaulted to denying parole, likely because they were mentally drained.
So timing is everything. We should schedule our most important tasks for our peak willpower hours.
Precisely. It's not just about what you do, but when you do it.
Yeah.
For me, I tackle my most demanding tasks first thing in the morning. Others find that a workout helps them boost their willpower before making big decisions.
I'm definitely a morning person when it comes to decision making. In the evenings, I'm way more likely to just go with the easiest option, even if it's not the best one. So how do we protect this precious willpower throughout the day?
That's where the art of saying no comes in.
Yeah.
The book really emphasizes protecting your time and energy, which often means declining requests that don't align with your one thing.
I can already feel the resistance welling up inside me. It's so hard to say no, especially when you want to be helpful and supportive.
I hear you, but the book makes a compelling case for it. They talk about how Steve Jobs was as proud of what Apple didn't do as what they did. He understood that focus requires saying no.
So saying no is actually a way of saying yes to your one thing.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be harsh or confrontational.
Right.
The book offers some really helpful strategies for saying no gracefully.
Okay.
Maybe you offer an alternative solution and delegate the task, or simply explain that you need to prioritize your current commitments.
I like that. It's about setting boundaries, not burning bridges. So we've got our one thing, we're protecting our willpower, and we're learning to say no. What's next on this journey to extraordinary results?
Well, now that we've laid the groundwork, it's time to tap into something even more powerful: purpose.
Okay.
The book draws a stark contrast between the feeling of aimlessness and having a clear goal, and it emphasizes the importance of living with purpose.
I can definitely relate to that. When I have a clear goal in mind, I feel so much more energized and motivated.
It's amazing how much purpose can fuel our actions. And it makes decision-making so much easier. When you know your why, it's easier to say no to distractions and stay focused on what truly matters.
All right, I'm feeling inspired. But how do we actually cultivate this sense of purpose? Does the book offer any practical tips?
It absolutely does, and this next concept might surprise you. It's all about the power of visualization.
Visualization, you mean like picturing yourself achieving your goals?
Yes, but with a twist. The book highlights research showing that it's not just about visualizing the outcome, but about visualizing the process.
Okay, that's interesting. I've always thought of visualization as like picturing yourself crossing the finish line, holding up that trophy, or in my case, holding my published novel.
Right.
What's so different about visualizing the process?
Well, the book highlights a study about students who are asked to visualize either the outcome of a test, getting a good grade, or the process of studying, reviewing the material, and taking the test.
Okay.
Guess what? The students who visualized the process actually performed better.
That's fascinating. So it's like mentally rehearsing for success, step by step.
Exactly. Instead of just focusing on the end goal, we walk ourselves through the actions that will get us there.
Yeah.
It helps us anticipate challenges, stay motivated, and focus on what we can control. Let's try a quick exercise together.
Okay.
Imagine you're about to give a big presentation.
Oh, that's a scary one. Okay, I'm imagining myself at the podium.
Hold on. Before you get to the podium, let's back up.
Okay.
Visualize yourself gathering your materials, organizing your slides, practicing your key points. Feel the confidence building as you rehearse. Now, visualize yourself calmly walking to the podium, feeling prepared and ready to share your knowledge.
Wow, that actually does help. Just focusing on those smaller steps makes the whole thing feel less intimidating.
It's about breaking down those mental barriers. We often psych ourselves out by focusing on the enormity of the outcome. Visualizing the process brings it back to the present moment, to the actions we can take right now.
Okay, this is all starting to click. But I have to admit, some of the advice in the one thing is a little, well, controversial.
Okay.
Like the idea that work-life balance is a lie?
Right.
Did I read that right?
That's definitely one of the book's more provocative claims.
Yeah.
But before we write it off, let's look at the reasoning behind it.
Okay.
They use this great analogy of juggling 5 balls: work, family, health, friends, and integrity. The work ball is made of rubber. It'll bounce back if you drop it. But the other 4 are glass.
Ooh, that's a powerful image. So it's not that we should neglect our personal lives, but that we need to be extra careful with those aspects because they're more fragile.
Precisely. The book argues that to truly excel professionally, we need to prioritize work time ruthlessly,
Hmm.
but it also stresses the importance of identifying the non-negotiables in our personal lives, those things that absolutely cannot be compromised.
So it's not about finding some mythical, perfect balance where everything gets equal attention. It's more about being strategic with our time and energy.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that certain areas require more focus and attention than others, and that's okay. It's about conscious allocation, not equal division. Think of it like budgeting. You allocate more money to the essentials, housing, food,
Right.
and less to discretionary spending. It's about prioritizing what matters most.
That makes a lot of sense. But I have to admit, the idea of letting certain things slide in order to focus on my one thing makes me a little anxious. What if everything else falls apart?
That's a valid concern, and the book acknowledges that a certain degree of productive chaos is inevitable when you're striving for extraordinary results.
Productive chaos. That sounds like an oxymoron.
It might seem counterintuitive, but think of it like decluttering your house.
Okay.
It usually gets messier before it gets organized, right? You're pulling everything out, sorting through it, making decisions about what to keep and what to let go of. That's productive chaos in action.
Okay, I'm starting to see the light. So it's okay to let some things slide as long as we're clear about our priorities.
Exactly. And it's not about neglecting those other areas entirely.
Right.
It's about recognizing that there will be times when your one thing requires more of your attention and other things might temporarily take a backseat. The key is to be intentional about it.
So how do we manage this productive chaos? Do we just surrender to the whirlwind?
Not exactly. The book provides some practical strategies to help us stay on track.
Okay.
One is time blocking, carving out dedicated blocks of time for specific tasks. Another is minimizing distractions, putting our phones on do not disturb, closing unnecessary tabs, maybe even finding a quiet workspace.
I'm a huge fan of time blocking. It's amazing how much more you can accomplish when you actually schedule time for those important tasks. And noise-canceling headphones are my secret weapon for minimizing distractions.
Those are game changers. It's all about creating an environment that supports your focus. What are some other productivity hacks you found helpful?
Well, I've been experimenting with the Pomodoro technique, working in focused 25-minute bursts with short breaks in between. It helps me stay on track and avoid burnout.
I love that technique. It's a great way to break down larger tasks into manageable chunks. And speaking of managing those little tasks, one strategy that's been incredibly helpful for me is the 2-minute rule.
Okay.
If a task takes less than 2 minutes to complete, do it right away.
Oh.
It keeps those small things from piling up and becoming overwhelming.
Ooh. I'm stealing that one. It sounds so simple, but I bet it makes a big difference.
It really does. It's all about those little wins that keep the momentum going.
This conversation has been so insightful. I'm already starting to rethink my approach to, well, pretty much everything. But even with all these great strategies, it's easy to fall back into old habits.
Hmm.
How do we stay committed to this one thing philosophy?
It's an ongoing process for sure, but one thing that helps me is to regularly revisit my one thing and make sure it's still aligned with my goals and values.
Okay.
And then it's about making conscious choices each day, asking myself, is this action moving me closer to my one thing, or is it a distraction?
It sounds like this is about much more than just productivity hacks. It's about a fundamental shift in mindset.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose where we focus our time and energy, and that those choices ultimately shape our lives.
It really is a paradigm shift. It's about moving from a culture of busy to a culture of intentionality.
Hmm.
Instead of letting our to-do list dictate our lives, we're consciously choosing what deserves our focus.
And that can be incredibly liberating.
Right.
It frees us from the guilt and overwhelm of feeling like we're never doing enough.
You know, this whole conversation has me thinking back to the founder of Guinness
Yeah.
and that 9,000-year lease.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a guy who knew his one thing.
He was definitely playing the long game.
Right.
It's a great reminder that extraordinary results often require a long-term vision and unwavering
It
commitment.
makes you wonder what he would say if he could see his company today.
I know.
I bet he'd be raising a glass to all those years of focused effort.
I bet he'd also be amazed at how his one thing, brewing a quality beer, rippled out and created this incredible legacy. It's a testament to the power of focusing on what truly matters.
I'm ready to find my own 9,000-year idea.
Yes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the one thing, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
I think it's this. Extraordinary results don't come from doing more, they come from doing the right things.
Yeah.
It's about identifying your one thing, both the big picture goal and the most impactful action you can take today, and then relentlessly focusing your time and energy on it.
And it's about letting go of the things that don't align with that one thing,
Right.
even if it means embracing a little productive chaos along the way.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about progress. Even small steps taken consistently can lead to remarkable results over time.
I love that. Progress over perfection. So, dear listeners, as we leave you to ponder your own one thing, we have a final question for you. What's the one thing that, if you committed to it fully, would have the biggest positive impact on your life right now?
Take some time to really reflect on that. Journal about it, brainstorm, talk it through with a friend, and once you've identified your one thing, don't be afraid to go all in.
Yes, go all in. If you're ready to dive deeper into this philosophy, you can find The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan wherever books are sold. And we'd love to hear from you. Share your one thing discoveries on social media, and let's keep this conversation going.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you. Remember, extraordinary results are within your reach. It all starts with identifying your one thing and taking that first step.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.